So thanks, everyone. My name is Jamie Seward. I'm the Associate Director of Affinity Engagement Programs with the Office of Alumni Relations. Before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge our co-sponsors, the Johns Hopkins University Film and Media Studies Department, the Hopkins School, and the Hopkins and Hollywood Affinity Group. So this program is going to begin with a discussion moderated by our guest moderator, Luke Kelly-Clyne. And as you know, we are pleased to have two extraordinary panelists this evening. Ben Silverman, co-CEO and Chairman of Propagate, and Charlie Collier, CEO of Fox Entertainment. After the panel discussion, we'll have time for Q&A. Now, if you have questions for our speakers, as dogs love working from home, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen, not in the chat. We don't want your questions to get lost in the chat. So now I have the pleasure of introducing Linda DeLibero, Special Advocate for Alumni and Outreach of the Program in Film and Media Studies at Hopkins, where she teaches courses on film history and aesthetics. Linda, turn the program over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to send a very brief thank you to our collaborators in arms, the Hopkins School. This is a relatively new collaboration, and I want to thank the people who have really made this happen. Lauren Reichart and Katie Varanelli, who I've been on many emails with, but have never laid eyes on. Thank you so much. And of course, Luke is the inspiration for this, the catalyst. It's been absolutely amazing for us. You know, we have at Johns Hopkins University a relatively small but mighty film and media studies program. And we're at the point now where we have some pretty impressive alums who are making their mark in New York and Hollywood. And we have a really amazing group of current students who are brilliant, talented, ambitious, and very much planning on making their careers in Hollywood and New York. And I think it's no secret that for them to have access to an event like this with two of the most important figures in the entertainment industry is huge for them. And we are so incredibly appreciative. We're so excited. And Ben and Charlie, thank you so much. Thank you, Hopkins School. Thank you, Luke. And thank you, Jamie, for putting this all together. So back to you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah, I just want to take a quick moment to introduce Luke before he dives in, because he's pretty amazing along with our panelists. So Luke is the executive producer of True TV's Double Cross with Blake Griffin, CBS All Access's Remote, Comedy Central's Lofi, creator and executive producer of I Want My Phone Back, a comedy game show on Facebook Watch, and showrunner and executive producer of Pop TV's Hot Date. Until assuming his role as president of Propagate's contents comedy studio, Big Breakfast, Luke served as the staff writer, director, and performer, and head of native video at College Humor, where he ran creative on several of the digital brand's most popular branded and original series. He authors the long-running Vulture column, Funny Videos of the Month, hosts the HeadGum podcast, I'm Still Right, and is a guest lecturer at the Film and Media Studies Department at Hopkins. He's also a member of the Writers Guild of America, the Producers Guild of America, and the National Academy of Television and Arts and Sciences. So now it's my pleasure to turn the program over to the amazing Luke Kelly-Clyne.
What an
Luke?
intro. What an intro, Jamie and Linda, and thank you so much. And Charlie and Ben, to just reiterate, we know how busy you guys are. We're so thankful that you made time to be with us here tonight, and just could not be more grateful to see your faces. I will very quickly do a little Charlie bio and Ben bio before we dive into the questions and commentary. Everybody should know that their bios were about 14 pages long each. So this is a very abbreviated version. They've done a few things in their careers. For Charlie, he was named Chief Executive Officer of Fox Entertainment in October of 2018, responsible for driving the overall creative and business vision for Fox Entertainment, including Fox Network, its in-house unscripted studio, Fox Alternative Entertainment, its animation studio, Bento Box Entertainment, and streaming platform Tubi. Supervises all content development, creating new strategies for growth, and overseeing all of its operations. And Mr. Silverman, Emmy and Golden Globe award-winning media entrepreneur, visionary producer behind The Office, the chairman and CEO, co-CEO of Propagate Content, which creates and produces all forms of content for distribution across a variety of platforms around the world. Thank you both for being with us. And the first question, it's not a hardball, it's a COVID question. Sorry to start here, but how has 2020 and now into 2021 and COVID changed the paradigm of TV specifically?
What's COVID?
Yeah, where are you, Ben?
You were going to do that, Charlie. You
No.
were going to do that. The only issue with this is Charlie and I are aspirational wannabe comedic voices. So the problem is going to be you kind of cast the two most hamish, comedically driven executives in Hollywood. So I apologize.
That's why you're here.
Da-da-da. No, go, you want to go first, Charlie?
Well, look, I mean, I think the biggest thing that came out of COVID is that you opened your Christmas tree farm and that you're calling us from there is really exciting. You know, for a Jewish legend to open a Christmas tree farm, you're just a giver. You're,
you know, it's COVID sent us into many awakenings, and mine was certainly about this calling. The pine was calling.
Right. I would say there are so many answers to the COVID question and so many questions that have yet to be answered as well, but it's affected us all dramatically from, you know, in the most obvious ways, the shutdowns and the rampant disruption. And then, you know, because it's a call and we can't see the faces of the audiences, we should say there's been some positives as well, in the sense that it's made our teams a lot more nimble. I know when we shut down in March, no one had been through it before. And our head of Fox Alternative Entertainment, Rob Wade, was adamant that we should be the first to put on a living room concert, whatever that was. And within a week, we had Elton John from his kitchen hosting a fundraiser concert with, you know, names you all know. And we raised, you know, $15 million quickly for some great charities and first responder organizations. And it proved to us we could produce in a whole new context. Because again, we were, at one point I gave a note last minute and he said, "I'm directing Elton John from my bedroom. We're doing the best we can," you know? So there have been some nimble opportunities. There have been some opportunities to slow some development down and go a little deeper. And then obviously there's been great crisis and lots of unemployment and lots of ongoing questions about health and safety and all the important things that every industry is dealing with. Sorry. And I don't know if you.
Yeah, I think the biggest change in our day-to-day was the production shift and how we were going to manage all of the liability associated with it. And our industry, the scripted side more so than the non-scripted side, is heavily unionized and very labor weighted, and with that comes a lot of regulation and regulatory kind of process as you try and get back into production. And so production has kind of shifted across the country to places that maybe were more friendly to easier requirements and quicker processes, and or places where people were more comfortable shooting. And so I think a big thing for us is we ended up moving a show, Chopped, from Brooklyn to Knoxville, Tennessee, which is a real stalwart show and maybe our most important piece of programming, which we make for Discovery and the Food Channel. And that was a big seismic shift and a large process in how we were doing business around our physical production. And then we've not been together. We've been totally remote. And this has been our way of connecting. And we associate a Zoom the way we used to a meeting. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that continues to shift. But we've been able to develop properties over video. We've been able to pitch properties over video. We've been able to really conceive and develop. The physical production piece requires 125 people. And that's where we need to, we're continually evolving, and hopefully, God willing, the vaccine gets distributed and we can, return to normalcy.
Sure. I will say, you know, we ended up shooting in Australia, a game show in Australia. We never would have done that, but they allowed us to have crowds because they've managed the crisis differently. And as Ben said, so many of the regulations, everything starts with keeping people safe and trying to keep people coming to work. And that balance has been just a real challenge.
That it has. It
Mhm.
certainly has, and hopefully a return soon. So part of what I spared from the bios was all of the accolades that each of you have received over the course of your careers. What do you recognize as your single greatest career achievement to date?
I took $11 from Ben at Riviera on
which is a golf course in California.
Right now.
Clark Gable's golf course and also Humphrey Bogart's golf course, but a golf course nonetheless.
Ben's an excellent golfer, but that's a tough question. You know what? I get the most pleasure from seeing the people that we work with just grow. You know, Ben's a pretty terrific.
But I would think I mean, you had so many, but it feels like, you know, maybe your first, like Mad Men was so seismic a transformation for your business at the time and you that, you know, if you had to pick, right, you know, could the firstborn be the favorite, you know? And
no. I got 4 kids, so I would never say that because that would be, I would say this, look, there are plenty of shows I love and those were career achievements. I will say, you know, you mentioned Mad Men. Breaking Bad was done by Vince Gilligan. Vince Gilligan is a different person today than the Vince Gilligan I was lucky enough to meet when he walked in the door. And you watch these people bring these visions to life and grow and become your lifelong friends. Mm-hmm. There actually, look, Ben and I grew up. I worked with Ben's mom back at Court TV years and years ago before Court TV became true.
I had to get off the phone with my mom because we were doing this Zoom. She got vaccinated in Miami. She's 82 and the hospital reached out to her and she got her vaccination. She's doing amazing. And I told her I was going to be doing the Zoom with you. And her first thing was like, send him love, say hi. I'm like, it may be awkward, but I have a feeling we'll talk about you. So I'm glad you talked about it first. But then the next is, how are you two dummies doing a Zoom for Hopkins and Johns Hopkins? I mean, it's more like, it's like, what happened? What, are they confused? Did they dial the wrong number? How are you there?
They're going through people they rejected and calling them.
Exactly.
No, but truly, I met Ben. I worked with Ben's mom when he was in London and started bringing formats back to America, like The Office, and I was, you know, beginning my career there. And the lifelong relationships you build, sometimes multi-generational, to me are some of the best parts and the best career achievements. I think it's pretty awesome. You work with a young director and they go on to, you know, direct Star Wars, and you think, you know, this is a pretty remarkable business that.
And then they lose your number.
Right, exactly. And then, but for that moment where you're together and you watch them grow, it's pretty great.
And then they leave.
Ben, what about you?
What was the question?
How good is your
The Office?
now?
The Office for me.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of milestones, highlights, and thank God luck, which is such a giant part of any business, but especially when you're trying to connect with culture, because both Charlie and I really love culture, and we both use that word a lot in how we talk about our businesses and our agendas and our creative output, and where we want to be is expressing ourselves with kids wearing backwards baseball caps and you know untying their shoes, and I think however you can find those moments of connectivity, and I've had unbelievable, you know, fortune and luck to get to touch shows that have literally hit the consciousness. That's a tough one for me right now, but The Office has done it sequentially and repeatably with this new generation each successive 5 to 8 years, more so than when it started. So it brings me a tremendous amount of pleasure because it wasn't a hit out of the gate. It wasn't a phenomenon. It wasn't celebrated. I mean, Carell didn't even win an Emmy. You know, it just didn't have the momentum that I felt it deserved. So I really like, because it's like an adult onset hit. You know, it happened
Right.
later in its life and career. And so I have, you know, extra pleasure in it. And then I just watch as a literal billion minutes of it are consumed every year. And these numbers kind of associated with it are so great. And I enjoy it the way that Charlie referenced. He enjoys the creative partnerships. Like you know, I'm really fond of the people, and we all realize now, almost more so than then, what a unicorn moment it was to be involved. At the time, we were all in our 20s and early 30s, and we thought, oh, it happens every week like that. And you don't realize that it's really hard to do.
Well, that's what's remarkable. You look at what Ben has been able to do and be around, and then you look at the number of things produced and you know, imported and exported, and so few of them do pierce popular culture. And when you have those and you have them repeatedly, it is a pretty remarkable moment.
No, and I love, and you know, just watching Charlie's air, like he's kept, you know, all of broadcast relevant with The Masked Singer. Like he brought a kind of, and it was a risk, and then spinning off and, you know, going after the space deeper. And we did a show together this fall that Luke was heavily involved with as well as a producer. And it was so fun. But talk about COVID and everything. We were doing a puppet show, like up to the last minute, like producing it. And there's something just so spectacular about the power of real broadcast television to do things so timely, uniquely, and loudly. And I know we both love that. Like we both, even though we work in cable streaming and all our, like, that's like still a holy grail for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your work on it, by the way.
Say it again, Charlie. Sorry.
Thanks for your work on it. That was great. I love.
Of course. No, and we're so happy to be still in the game and moving it forward. We can't wait to.
For anyone who's watching, if you ever see Robert Smigel's work or Triumph, the comic insult dog, but he's brilliant, and I thought that was a really different fun.
Yeah, and he's doing our puppet show for Charlie's network, and it's really dangerous and so outrageous and so hysterical. Yeah. I can't wait. It's very, very much in the Johns Hopkins world. So I think you guys will all be fans. Luke, I think when we do our next one, I'd love if we could premiere it for this group.
That would be so fun. That would be
if you could do a premiere, it would be really good.
Right.
And Charlie and Ben have each asked me to make puppets of each other for the show. This is the first time.
Exactly. Wow. I want a puppet.
So guys, there are a lot of alums on this call, a lot of career folks, but also a lot of students who may want to get into the entertainment industry. And there's this paradigm at Hopkins School and also Johns Hopkins of, you know, you take the routes usually traveled. You do the med school route, you do the finance route, you do the law route. And so for those students listening,
stay on those routes.
Stay on those routes. Don't go on our route. No, but for those students listening in, what advice would you have? There's no textbook in entertainment. How do you start your career?
Ben, you want to grab it? You want?
Go ahead, Charlie.
Should we talk at the same time and go quicker?
Exactly.
Well, I say this. I think, you know, television is so sophisticated. It should have 8 to 12 years of graduate school before you get in. Don't you think? I'm kidding. I look. It literally is terrific that you can have an idea and see it come to life, and there is no roadmap. You've got people who are on their way to their participation in the creative process. And I know you both have to feel this way, is that the way you get in is you start. And sometimes that's as an assistant on someone's desk, as I started. Sometimes you're lucky enough to have a great idea that someone nurtures and you get in. I remember seeing a panel once of comedy writers around the Emmys or the Globes, and one of the young writers who was getting an Emmy said, this was such a bad answer, Ben just left. I don't
No,
know.
no, someone's trying to FaceTime me.
These young writers are sitting around with experienced writers at some Emmy panel, and a 23-year-old writer of a comedy that was nominated said, look, my best friend went to General Motors after college, and when they became an assistant and were liked, they got put in a training program, and then they managed a couple people, and they got more training, and then they became a director, and then they got some more training, and they're on a career path. And this 23-year-old said, I wrote some fart jokes and now I have a $4 million a week budget, and because it was obviously a lot funnier and more substantive than that, you really can, for good work and good creative, get rewarded early. And that is something pretty wonderful and really magical about our business. I don't know if you,
I would echo, and it's great to hear you feel the same way in regards to just do it. It's like one of the few industries and one of the ones that technology has absolutely transformed the quickest, and everybody on this Zoom clearly has a camera and a audio input, so you can now make a movie, and so the barrier to entry is so much lower to put together with so many of these software tools, let alone the tools that Hopkins and Johns Hopkins provides you if you study in these spaces with the resources that the institutions have. And you can start making stuff. And I think very early on, one of the most interesting things is how many groups or cliques of collaborators persevere through in Hollywood. How Seth Rogen is still rolling with his friends, how Maverick Carter and LeBron James are still producing together, how you see so many of these groups, Judd Apatow's group and peers, including his wife, Leslie Mann, and you start to see these kind of pockets, especially in comedy, of these collaborative groups that, God, sorry.
That's Judd Apatow.
Yeah, I was going to say, Judd's
Exactly.
calling.
Guess what it is, guys? You'll all be shocked. It's an agent. And
Right, exactly.
It's
Well,
usually
by the
an
way,
expletive before. It's calling like twice, But I do think that, and then within our industry, we've had a tradition of apprenticeship programs and trainee programs that have existed in all of the executive corporate environments and agency environments. But I think that's all changing. And it's really in a transformational moment. And I think a lot of the jobs are going into the big tech platforms and bringing on a content approach within those platforms, and or as a true creative, building and creating your own voice and work will always lead to more work. And there's always apprenticeship programs within it, but you have to provide the first script, the first video, the first film, the first acting reel, the first, theater performance. You have to do those first steps to get in that door.
Well, and I'll say, yes, there are cliques that travel, but it's also a people business. So often I'll hear from parents, my kid's going out to LA, what do I tell them to do? And similarly, even if it's not on the complete creative side, you say, just start, because the people you work with, especially if it's in the movie world, they're there for 8 to 12 weeks. And then they're going to their next project too. It's quite nomadic. So you can meet people on one set, do something well and get pulled to the next, but you get pulled with a slight promotion. And you watch, whether it's the old agency world where you start in the mailroom and can work your way up. It's a very mobile business. It's a very people friendly business. And I think as much as anything, once you start to build your network, it's remarkable how you can move from place to place.
Ben, out of curiosity, how many days did you spend in the mailroom?
I skipped it.
Yeah.
0 days.
Well, but so far.
That's right. He could go back.
Right. Exactly.
He could go back.
Right.
So piggybacking off of that, guys, you both run these pillars of entertainment on the buy side and the sell side. What do you look for in new hires at each of your businesses?
You go first, Ben. I'll take the.
Mine is just the, you can't accept no, and the passion. And I usually, not to give away to this crowd, if you come in my door for an interview, I really want to know what people are watching. What are you watching? What are you into? What do you like? Why? And then from there, their path, their passion, their willingness. And if it's like, oh, this is, one of the things my guidance counselor suggested I do, it's like not going to continue. You need to find it in a place that is undeniable, because it is really hard. It's a hard business to succeed in. It's a hard business to get a job in. There's not 1,000 jobs. And right now we've just contracted like everyone in the world, which is not what anyone wants to hear, but it's still a world where you can make your own magic. Yeah. And that's, what Charlie's talking about. It's one of the fantasies and glories of Hollywood. You really can make it if you create it.
It's true. Well, and you said the passion word. I think, a lot of it is belief. You will get a million no's. Ben is one of the best salespeople you'll ever meet. And no is just the first of it's the beginning of the conversation. That is what you have to believe, that you're gonna power through, and you have the passion to believe in your project, because most things are passed on, and a lot of scared people in our business say no as instinct, because if you say no, you're usually right. The problem is you miss the office if you say it just religiously. And I'll say the other thing I look for, and I'm much I'm enamored. I went to business school. I love the breadth of creative meets business, and breadth is a word I use a lot. So passion, without a doubt, and creativity, of course, and wanting to see ideas come to life and nurture artists. But I'd also say breadth, because especially now, you're not just one thing ever. We work in every genre. You heard our descriptions, and if you looked at what we're passionate about, it's never just one thing. And so you need people who can speak in a lot of rooms and have the posture to carry a lot of different rooms. And I love it when people come in and can show breadth.
Good answers.
Are you judging our ansers, Luke?
I am.
Thanks, Luke.
I'm grading you.
Thanks,
you. You'll get them.
I needed that. I have a kindergarten and third grader in the other room. I needed some affirmation, because right now
I'm always here for that for you, Ben. I'm always here for that.
According to them, I suck.
Before we go on to Q&A, guys, this is maybe the hardest question, I think, and I'm sorry to leave it till last, but I'm not really that sorry. And it's this: what is the thing in your career, each of you, that you've not yet achieved? You've done so much, but what's the brass ring? What's making you still get up in the morning and hustle the way that you do?
That's interesting.
An Oscar.
Really?
I'd love an Oscar.
Really? Why? Where can you cash an Oscar?
Oh, it'd be so great.
That's cool. That's
Could get to thank everyone. Big stage. Still the holy grail of the industry.
That's interesting. That's cool. Yeah, I wouldn't have said that. For me, what gets me up in the morning, what does it, is to keep finding new creative ideas. I think, by the way, there are some really cool, fun perks. Ben nailed one right there that are part of this industry. I will tell you, there is almost nothing better than having that project that no one else believes in.
Well, didn't you call the sports department to try and get to kick a field goal?
Not me.
Wasn't that something? Didn't you do that?
No.
Weren't you that guy? Didn't I read about you in page 6?
That's funny.
Who said the Giants are so bad, I'd like to come kick a field goal.
That wasn't me. I'm a Jets fan. That was definitely not me. And the Jets.
Creating culture is the key.
Yeah, it is.
But I take it for granted that I'm going to just keep doing that.
It's true.
The Oscar is the harder part. The Oscar turn will require some more work and luck.
All right, Ben.
But there's so many things, I think, but it is an industry where you could never be satisfied, partially because it's all about what have you done for me lately. And even the people you don't know will say, yeah, but what's on tonight? Like all people care about is what's on tonight.
Right.
They don't care about what was on yesterday, last week, or 3 weeks ago. So you're constantly energized and reinventing in the pursuit of creativity, culture, and awareness. And a lot of people get fatigued with that and end up kind of, leaving the industry. It burns people out because it requires that, and your ego has to kind of be comfortable to live with that.
I will say this, I would love it if one of the people from, one of the people I'm closest with on one of the teams that I've worked goes on to run something big in the industry. I have people who have made it to all sorts of different places, and obviously creators that our job is to nurture them to go on to big stuff. But Ben talks about popular culture a lot. I do too. I think corporate culture too. I mean, you guys have become known for the risks you take, for being global, for doing all the stuff you do. And it's pretty cool when people come out of that and go on to sort of change the industry. I think,
Totally.
I think that's pretty great too. So I'd like to see, one of those people fire me someday.
Oh,
What a good goal. What a goal.
Well, but it's a people business. Ben's right. It takes so much energy because everything is a new start and a new sell and a new interaction and a new relationship. And it is pretty remarkable. I get jazzed about it. I just want to keep going. It's fun to create new things.
So time for some Q&A, guys. Just going to throw a couple questions at you, and thank you to the group who's been populating the Q&A thread. There's some really great questions in here. First, can either of you comment on movie stars moving to TV and how the proliferation of streaming TV has opened up more opportunities for stars to make that move?
So I went to AMC when it was a movie network, and we talked about getting into television. As Ben said, we started with Mad Men. And if you had asked for movie stars to come in television at that time, the agents, if they had recommended it, might have been fired. And then you fast forward to today, well, really, 10 years ago, and if they weren't being offered those roles, their agents would be fired. It just became cooler. And I think part of it is that the quality of writing got so good that these scripted dramas especially became like movies every week. And so all of a sudden you could live with these characters and these actors could do different things over a period of time that they used to wedge into an hour and 45 or 2 hours and 45 minutes. And so really now there's nothing better than an ongoing series for these people to express their art. I love that.
Great.
Ben, who's going to be in your Oscar-winning movie? Who do you think?
Who's our cast?
Yeah.
I watched. I've been watching some great westerns throughout the pandemic, and I watched Who Shot Liberty Valance, Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne, and I think it's Lee Marvin. And it's just the casting, and you could imagine because they're all in their prime in the film. That's in that moment, it's like Leo and Brad Pitt together, and it was so awesome to see people do what they're best at doing. But I think in terms of the walls between the mediums, it's about time that it changed in terms of where people navigated between. And I think something that both Charlie and I do is also kind of try and think genreless. Like we recognize what the genre buckets are and we want to round them out, but we think in terms of quality, I want to do the best reality, the best comedy, the best drama. And no one is lesser than the other. And I think that's start to happen with actors and performers. And having found America Ferrara and seen her through Ugly Betty and getting a Golden Globe, and found Henry Cavill and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and the Tudors and watched them kind of transform to Superman and now back to The Witcher, or Carell, who has navigated that space from The Office, but I found him in Bruce Almighty doing, as a kind of sidekick. And then he did 40-Year-Old Virgin in the summer of before our second season launch. And he lived in both worlds. So it's a fascinating cycle, but I think the walls have been demolished and it's no longer a challenge. It's just about pursuing the best work and where do you go to express yourself.
Mm-hmm. Next one is a tricky one, but I think a really interesting one at this moment. I don't know if you guys saw what
from the Chechnyan judge
last week. It's a Chechnyan questioner. No, the polarization of our country right now. How do you program for that? Right?
That's great. It's a great question. Look, back before Ben and I were doing what we do, broadcast networks used to do, 30 and 40 ratings and 50 and 60 shares, meaning that, half the country or more would be watching the same thing on a given night. And when cable proliferated, it was funny. Everyone's like, oh, that's broadcasting. Now there's narrowcasting. And then, as Ben said, today, you're all filmmakers because you got a camera and an audio input and you can go, and the fragmentation is unbelievable. What that has opened up is the ability to target anybody. The harder part, and this is why piercing popular culture is such a huge goal, the harder part is to get everyone or many back doing the same thing at the same time again. And so actually with the fragmentation, I think some of this is quite, obvious. You can only hear the voices you want to hear, and that's not good for, good for the world, but it's happening more and more, certainly on social media and as you choose feeds. As a broadcaster, my greatest moment is, perfect example. This Sunday, we have Brady versus Breeze, and that's going to be an enormous game, an enormous rating. And we'll promote the Monday shows, which are 911 and 911 Lone Star, which are top dramas in broadcast, maybe not for this audience, but the goal there is breadth. And the goal there is to have within 1 week, 10 to 20 million people watching the same thing because it's not narrowcasting, it is truly broad. Can you remember the question, Ben?
I remember that one.
Yeah, I don't either.
No, I think, for me, I have the ability to think about each outlet differently, so that when I'm thinking about Fox, I can try and think broad and think unifying and try and do that in different ways. But one of the great histories of Fox is they did it through specificity and really, playing with real specific things. And they may have made some group look at King of the Hill or The Simpsons or Ed O'Neill's character in Married with Children in one way, or they may have looked at it in the other way,
Right.
just like that All in the Family tradition. And for our shows, I just like, and I know Charlie lives in the space, like aspirational and positive. And I really, think about the characters. And most of the time you can break down any division through spending time with someone, and television allows you to spend time with people. And which is why, our Ugly Betty and our Jane the Virgin became beloved by people who probably would not want to share a Coca-Cola, so it's really through one of the gifts of TV and one of its transformative opportunities. It's a bummer that it feels like it's been abused and that the media age has somehow been, eaten itself, but I blame social media for that. And I really do. And I still think that the longer format of the episodic storytelling engine is inherently unifying. And from Walton's to Roots to Betty to Craig Robinson's Daryl being the smartest person in the office to the puppet show Charlie and I fought to make together. And there's just so much opportunity to do that in TV and media. And I think we just have to figure out a smarter way to guardrail what's happening in social media. And it's really at its worst in the most recent history.
Yeah, it sure is.
Is this on Parler? Guys, is this on Parler?
This is streaming on Parler and Telegram simultaneously.
Guys, are we on full? But I mean, it's a full. Okay, because I've never been to a parlor before.
It is. Consider yourself.
What is a parlor? Who even has a parlor anymore?
If you have to ask, you're not welcome in the parlor.
Right.
The living room? What does it mean?
Yeah.
Does it mean some canon thing? What does parlor even mean?
It's the living room. It's where you talk
That's what I
about
thought.
racism
yeah.
quite openly. Yeah.
Ben, first rule of parlor, we don't speak about parlor.
We don't parlor, exactly. There's 13 million of us taking a private plane to storm the castle.
I can't wait till Deadline puts this on the front page tomorrow and says you guys are endorsing Parler.
No, that was Ben Silverman. That's with an S. Put up your last name, Ben.
What's the one thing, guys?
My wife had to type that for me. The entry into this panel was difficult for me. I'm not wearing my reading glasses, Charlie. I'm still holding on. You and Luke gave up, but if you can't read, you can't type your name.
He's a young gun. What's the one thing that each of you have said no to in your careers that you wish you said yes to?
That's funny. What's your big pass, Ben?
The Kardashians. I mean, more financial than anything else, but I mean, Kris Jenner, brought her incredible family to me, and she and Bruce were friends, and I had hired one of their friends is our intern, John Pollock, who just recently was a president level at NBC. And I just didn't get it. I didn't understand it or get it. And that was a pass.
Yeah, the one that got away from me, well, it wasn't so much a pass as circumstances. It was Black Mirror. I wanted Black Mirror so badly. I thought Charlie Brooker was an absolute genius. I loved his team, and through circumstances, it ended up on Netflix, not AMC. And I remember I was sitting at the Emmys after they had launched on Netflix and won their first Emmy, and the gentleman who had flown to London to meet with them with me texted me a picture of someone in a shower, and he said, "We showered in the airport for that show, and we still didn't get it." And
No,
I was so bummed. Yeah, but I think Black
get ready
Mirror.
for the meeting. Yeah.
What's that?
Get ready for the meeting.
Exactly. We landed Heathrow, we showered at the airport, we run and we go, and and then we watched it become what it was. And I actually, to your questions earlier about platform, I think that is a show that would have been better weekly. I think it would have been off the TV pages. It would have been an event every week. We could have really elevated it in meaningful ways into the cultural dialogue. And by the way, for those who love it, and I'm one of them, it does plenty. But I thought it could have been a unifying event in the way Ben described. And I was so bummed got away.
All right, guys, last one. And I know some of you will be disappointed. We'll do our best to, with Charlie and Ben's offices and myself, to answer the others. But are movie theaters donezo with Warner Brothers bringing all their stuff to HBO Max and Netflix announcing they're going to do a new original movie every week? Are we ever going to sit in theaters again? What do you think?
I think we will. Ben, you think we will?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so hard to judge anything in permanence in this moment. We have to be confident we're going to get beyond this moment to be confident we're going to have movie theaters. And I think most people are getting confident we're going to get beyond this moment, and that's the COVID piece. Now, there's no question, flat screen televisions, Dolby sound, digital delivery, 8K in your bedroom, and really comfortable sofas, and Uber delivering you popcorn, a soda, and a whatever you would have had at the movie theater, that's better food. Like, there's a secular shift that says, oh wow, isn't this a great experience at home? But there's also that joy in going to a movie theater and that communal energy. And I think it's going to be the blockbusters that are being built for that experience, and they're probably going to get more experiential. Like, we weren't there with the 3D, we weren't quite there with the Avatar launch, like a couple of the movies that tried, and then it became hard to do and not cool. But there'll be some level of an incremental experience that you get in a movie theater environment that'll be worth the investment of the people building the theaters, that'll make us go back to the theater also. It's not over yet, and the content machines are too good at making those kind of big tent, events that people will pay for, to not focus and continue seeing it through. So I do not think it's over.
Yeah, and there's something about the shared experience that cannot be replaced. It's better if you've ever been in a packed movie theater watching horror and you react with the crowd. That's worth paying for. So I do think
the restaurants aren't open. The stores are doing click and curb. I'm still enjoying a walk down the street. Like, I still want to take a walk down the street, and part of that's just the feel and energy of other people.
And I think it'll be different. I think it'll be different and reduced, and opportunities will, but there is something special about the shared experience. And look, we feel it through sports, right? I mean, we're still broadcasting football, but it's not the same as feeling it with the crowd. And I
think that's why the ratings were down. Don't you think that's?
I think there's a lot of reasons, but yeah, I think there is, it was most obvious during baseball. You hear the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and they simulated it as well as you can. But there's nothing like watching the crowd get up and watch the ball go out. It's part of the experience. And I think live events are going to be different, but the communal gathering is not going to end.
So guys, remember a couple minutes ago when I said it was the last question, I lied to you. There's one more question.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sorry to put you out, but it's diversity, right? Talking about how do you each target and incubate and champion programming that reflects what our nation looks like and what our world looks like.
Right. Well, so look, I work for one of the broadcasters. I'll jump in. The answer is, one of the things that appealed to me about specifically the Fox broadcast job, and Ben mentioned it, is that you can do a lot through specificity. So this is a company with a culture that has, I don't know if most of this crowd's old enough, but In Living Color and Empire more recently. And, Ben and I are developing a book called Our Kind of People, which is, based on a book of the same name. The opportunities to tell stories that represent culture is not only the right thing to do, it's good storytelling. It is what we all strive for. And the reality is we all can do much, much better. On the other hand, the industry effort to do better has never been more meaningful and more palpable. And the types of stories and storytellers we're supporting feel like it's heading in the right direction. There's almost no answer that's not going to sound trite, because we have to and will do better. But I'll tell you, when I first got to Fox, literally in my first few months, we put up a live version of Rent Live. Rent, if you don't know, it is a musical set in the 90s New York AIDS crisis. And I remember the feeling that we stood up, tens of millions of dollars invested in a live production of Rent on broadcast television. It was never meant to be broad. It was meant to do exactly what your question is, which is represent voices that deserve to be heard. And it's a beautiful story, and we were thrilled to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always part of our culture and business and the companies that I'm involved with because of the stories that I want to see. I'm not involved in diversity for diversity's sake. I'm involved in telling stories that are interesting. And I find that many people who have gone through experiences that are unique or who have been challenged because of their status in life through their race or through their socioeconomic background is very fascinating. And they tend to be characters you can root for, and they tend to be underdogs, and they tend to be stories that I want to see. And supporting storytellers who want to tell those stories has always been part of our DNA and career. And I think you got to push it though. And would I be able to make The Office today in the way we were able to make it then? Would we be able to have Mr. Brown lead our Diversity Day episode? Would we be able to kind of confront the racism, sexism, xenophobia on its head the way we were able to by bringing comedy and levity to it? And are we able to change people's minds because Daryl was the smartest guy in the office, but he couldn't get the job to be the CEO? Would we be ruining his story or the actual story of people trying to overcome challenges due to things out of their own control, like their race? And would we be diminishing it if we had just made Daryl the boss and Carell's character the manager of the warehouse? I don't know the answers to those questions, but I know the exploration can't become rigid. And as somebody who champions those kind of stories, I don't want to be caged in. Finding Betty's story in Ugly Betty, this young woman who didn't speak English as part of her ugliness. It wasn't her physical look. It was that she was a daughter of an immigrant. In that story, it took me 10 plus years to get Jane the Virgin made with another woman of color, young woman of color, in a similar kind of matriarchal, parental family story. And that's unfortunate and really annoying. And so, people need to open the doors to telling those stories. But it takes a lot to get there. And, it continues. But I also think you cannot shut the door around it to where you don't explore what the real issues are. And I just think, would we be able to do the Jeffersons? Would you be able to do Chico and the Man? Would you be able to do All in the Family today? Would you get away with it when it's a very interesting moment.
It is. Well, I'll say, you've always been curious too. We mentioned all those things we look for in people. You better be curious, and you better be, curious about stories that aren't your own. you've done it.
And our kind of people is something I'm so excited about, and all of you at Hopkins and Johns Hopkins to just look at the book, because it's about a world and a sliver of upper class Black life in America that is so fascinating, so interesting to me, and was just, I just wanted to learn about it. But I was also like, gosh, this showcases something people haven't seen before. And I think a lot about tribal when I tell stories. And a tribe can be the boys of Fight Club, you know, a tribe can be a baseball team, a tribe can be the Real Housewives. But, you know, it's very cool when you can get specific and true inside a tribe and be with a vernacular and a language, because it becomes broad. It's not narrow, actually, it becomes broad.
Right.
Guys, thank you both so much, Ben and Charlie, again, for making time. This has been amazing. And I know both alums and students of both schools are just blown away. The attendance was incredible, unsurprisingly. And we thank you both so much for your time. Ben, your Christmas tree needs watering. I think we can get to that.
It died.
It died over the course of this conversation, but truly, and to everybody who attended, thank you so much. Thank you for making time on a Thursday evening. We love you guys and we appreciate you. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you guys.
Bye, guys. Bye,
Be well.
ladies. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much, Linda. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie and Linda. Bye-bye.